My name is Josh, I'm 32 years old, and I work in the IT field. My job is fairly stable. I develop software, work from home or in the office depending on my mood, and have a pretty comfortable life overall. I wouldn't say that my work is my greatest passion, but I like it. It gives me stability, a good income, and a feeling that I am creating something. I also have a wife. Her name is Sarah, she is 29 years old, and she works in marketing. We have been together for 6 years and married for 3. We met when she was just starting her career, and I had already been in my field for several years. Our acquaintance was quite ordinary. Our friends invited us to the same party where we happened to be in the same company. She immediately stood out for her energy, confident, charismatic, the kind of person who can easily get along with anyone. I thought to myself, this girl knows exactly what she wants from life. Our relationship developed quickly, and maybe that's why I thought it was strong. We traveled a lot, spent time together, and supported each other in our careers. Sarah has always been very active. She could catch fire with an idea and literally live it until she lost interest. This applied to everything: a new sport, a new job, even friendship. I remember how she could spend weeks talking to someone and then just say, "We've become too different," and never think about that person again. But that didn't happen with our relationship. We were stable. I always thought that Sarah was my person and that we had no secrets. We were both busy with our careers, but we always found time for each other. There were times when I worked overtime, or when she was late for some important meetings, but it never seemed to be a problem. We loved spending evenings together, watching TV shows, discussing plans for the future. We even had a tradition: every Saturday we would go to the same cafe, order coffee and croissants and just talk. Several times we discussed the future. Sarah wanted children, but not now. She said she wanted to reach a certain level in her career before thinking about it. I didn't mind waiting either, especially since I liked our life the way it was. I remember one day a friend joked, "You are such a perfect couple that it's boring." We laughed about it, but inside I really thought that we were. Yes, we had our arguments, like everyone else. We fought over stupid things like who forgot to take out the trash or why she ordered too many things online again. But it was all small things that didn't matter. I didn't think anything would change. There was no apparent reason for it. But looking back, I realized that it didn't start suddenly, not in one day. It was a slow, gradual drift away. Something I didn't notice or didn't want to notice. The changes started with small details, so small that at first I didn't even pay attention to them. But now, looking back, I see that these were the first puzzles of a bigger picture. At first, it was just a little thing. Changes that I wouldn't have even noticed if I hadn't started putting them together. Sarah has always been energetic, proactive, and loved to try new things. But at the same time, she was never a fan of sports. We could go hiking or cycling together on the weekends, but the gym? Regular jogging? It was not about her, and then suddenly she started getting up earlier to go to her morning workouts. At first, I thought it was just a phase. She was going through a phase. But a month passed, and she was still waking up at 6 a.m., putting on her gym clothes and going to group classes. I joked about it once, "Wow, who is this person and what has he done to my wife?" She laughed and said, "I just wanted to look better. And sport helps to cope with stress." It sounded logical. Her job was really stressful: deadlines, client demands, constant pressure. I thought it was her way of coping. And yet, deep down, I was hurt by it. Not because she played sports, but because it was not like her. If she had previously expressed a desire to change her lifestyle, I would have supported her. But it was somehow unexpected, but I didn't attach any importance to it. The next wake-up call was when she started spending more time at work. Sarah has always been ambitious, but she used to find a balance. We used to arrange our evenings together and leave work matters outside the house. But now she was staying late at the office more and more often, meeting with a client. Important project, boss asked me to stay. I believed her, so why not? It was normal in her field. One day I made dinner something simple, pasta with wine. She wrote that she would be there at 8, but when the clock showed 9:30 and she was not there yet, I started to get nervous. I called her and she didn't answer right away. "Oh, sorry, I'm still at the office. It's just a lot of work, the time has gone by so fast." "Eat without me, okay?" Her voice sounded distant. Not tired, but distant. "Okay," I said. "When will you be home?" "I don't know. Maybe in an hour." I hung up the phone and felt that something was wrong. But again, I had no proof that it was something bad. The next day she acted as if nothing had happened. We had breakfast together and talked about our plans for the day. I asked her how work was going, and she replied, "Nothing special, just a mess." I decided not to dwell on it, but then things got even more interesting. Sarah started behaving differently with her phone. She used to leave it on the kitchen table while she cooked or on her nightstand before going to bed. We even checked it together sometimes, looking at memes, choosing restaurants. And now her phone was always with her. If she went to the bathroom, she took it with her. If I sat down next to her while she was flipping through the feed, she would unnoticed flip the screen. I noticed this and made a joke. "Are you an undercover agent?" She laughed again, but somehow strained. "It was just a habit. Sometimes clients write even at night," she said. I didn't argue. Perhaps it really is just a habit, but from that moment on, something changed in me. For the first time, I felt that I was beginning to doubt. The changes were gradual, but they accumulated like a snowball. Sarah seemed to be moving away from me, and although I tried to find a logical explanation for this, I had a depressing feeling inside, as if I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground was gradually crumbling under my feet. We used to have our own little rituals. In the evenings, we used to watch TV shows together, discuss the events of the day, and just sit on the couch, snuggled up to each other. She always laughed at my jokes, even the ones that were downright stupid. And now these moments are gone. I began to notice that Sarah seemed to be avoiding conversations on purpose. She would hide her eyes when I asked her how her day was. Her answers became short, as if she was just getting away from me. One evening I decided to bring it up. "Sarah, you've become a bit distant. Is everything okay?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "What?" "Yeah, I'm fine, I'm just tired," I sighed. This was a standard response lately. "I can see that something is wrong." I tried again. She was silent, then quickly said, "Josh, you're making this way too complicated. I just have a lot to do." I didn't want to push, so I decided to give her space. But it only made things worse. One day, when I came home earlier than usual, she was in the bedroom. I heard her voice. She was talking to someone on the phone. "Yeah, me too." "I don't know, we'll see." Then silence. "Okay, I'll text you later." When I came into the room, she quickly tapped the screen, turned off the call or closed the chat. I didn't say anything, just pretended not to notice, but now I couldn't help but wonder, who was she saying me to? The distance between us was growing. I didn't know if it was just the effects of stress or something else, but our communication began to resemble superficial conversations between two friends. Not spouses. I tried to remember the last time she initiated a conversation, hugged me for no reason at all. It turned out that it was a long time ago. At night, lying in bed next to her, I felt this coldness. She didn't turn to me, didn't hug me like she used to. She just lay on her side, scrolled through her phone, and seemed to be somewhere far away in her thoughts, in a world where I was no longer allowed. Maybe it's just stress? Or do I really feel something? The thought kept running through my head. I tried not to jump to conclusions, but I was increasingly overwhelmed by the feeling that we were slowly falling apart. And the worst part was that I didn't know how to stop it. I kept convincing myself that I was exaggerating. Yes, Sarah had changed, but people change, right? Sometimes I even blamed myself for my own suspicions. This is my wife, the person I love and built a life with. Shouldn't I just trust her? But one day everything turned upside down. It was an ordinary evening. I was sitting in the living room, flipping through my news feed while Sarah took a shower. Her phone was left on the nightstand. It was locked, and I didn't even think about touching it, but then it lit up, a message. I saw a name out of the corner of my eye, Adam. I knew who it was, her coworker. She had mentioned him a couple of times, as if unintentionally, by the way. I didn't pay much attention, but the text, "Missed you. Today was great." Red heart. My heart felt like it was clenched in my chest. I stared at the screen, hoping that I had imagined it was some kind of stupid misunderstanding. But no. There, right in front of me, was a message that changed everything. I heard the shower turn off in the bathroom. I quickly looked away, picked up my phone and put it back in the same place as if nothing had happened. My hands were shaking a little. Sarah came out, wrapped in a towel, with wet hair. She looked at me and must have noticed something in my face. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yes," I answered. The voice sounded foreign to me. She nodded and picked up the phone. And at that moment, I noticed how she froze for a moment when she saw the screen. That was the moment when my suspicions stopped being just suspicions. I sat in silence, watching the TV, although I didn't even understand what was happening there. My head was empty, but at the same time thousands of thoughts were banging against each other, as if I was trying to put together a huge puzzle, but all the pieces didn't fit into the picture. Sarah acted as if nothing had happened. She just picked up the phone, threw it on the couch, and went into the bedroom, toweling her hair. I wanted to say something, to ask her directly, but I couldn't. She pretended she hadn't seen the message, as if it was nothing special. But I noticed how quickly she checked her phone. And most importantly, how quickly she turned off the screen. I knew I couldn't just ignore it. But I also realized that if I asked her right now, she would make an excuse. She would say it was just a joke, that I had misunderstood the situation, that they were just friends. I decided that I needed more information. The next few days were a real test for me. I tried to act like I always did, so as not to arouse suspicion, but everything was boiling inside me. I noticed her every move, every detail, every moment that would have seemed unimportant to me before. For example, she started smiling more often when she received messages. Not the way you smile at memes or funny videos, but in a different way, gently, barely noticeably, the way you smile when you receive a message from someone who is really important. Or when she went to the shower, her phone was always on silent mode and lying face down. Once, when she went to the store, I took her phone in my hands. I didn't want to dig into it, but I just wanted to know. The truth, the screen was locked, and I didn't know her password. But then I saw that there was a message, "Adam, if only I could be with you right now," and my hand clenched. That evening I decided to share my thoughts with my friend Ben. We met at a bar, as usual, ordered a beer, and I just spilled everything that had been building up inside me over the past weeks. "Do you think she's cheating on you?" he asked me bluntly. I shrugged my shoulders. "I don't know. But everything points to it." I saw the message, Ben. It wasn't just friendly. He took a sip of his beer and looked at me carefully. "Look, Josh, I don't want to add fuel to the fire, but this isn't just your paranoia anymore. You have to do something." "Like what?" I asked. "Make a scene. Make her confess. First make sure," he said, "because if you accuse her without proof, it could only make things worse." I nodded. I knew I couldn't live in this state of uncertainty. The next day I decided to test her. I took the day off and told her I was working from home. Sarah behaved as usual, even smiled, even kissed me before she left. I waited for 15 minutes and then left too. I knew where her office was. But I also knew that she usually didn't take a lunch break, at least that's what she told me. I decided to wait for her at a cafe that was 2 blocks away from her work, and when I saw her, she was walking next to Adam, and they were holding hands. My world just stopped. I was standing on the sidewalk, looking at them, and I couldn't move. It was the moment I had been dreading, but at the same time expecting. Even though I had all the evidence in front of me, part of me still hoped I was wrong. She was laughing. She was holding his hand. She looked so light, so happy. Not like she was at home with me. I could have walked up to her right now. I could have screamed. Made a scene. But something in me stopped me. I just stood there and watched them go into the cafe, and I felt something breaking inside me. I turned around and went home. That evening I waited for her in silence. When she came back, I noticed that she took off her coat more slowly than usual. As if she already felt that something was wrong. I was sitting at the table, holding a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. "How was your day?" I asked without looking up. "Fine," she replied. "And you?" I finally looked at her. "Sarah, are you hiding something from me?" She froze for a second. Her eyes slid to the side, her hands clenched. "What? What are you talking about?" "I saw you today," I said. My voice was calm, even though my insides were raging. Her expression changed. She was trying to remain neutral, but I could see a shadow of fear cross her face. "Josh. It's not what you think, not what I think." I laughed softly, but it wasn't a laugh of joy. "I think my wife is seeing another man behind my back." "Isn't that so?" She opened her mouth, but couldn't find anything to say. I shook my head. "I just want to know the truth, Sarah. No excuses. No lies." She sighed and finally spoke softly. "I didn't want it to happen this way, but it did," I interrupted sharply. "You could have told me earlier." She sat down across from me, crossed her arms, looking down. "I don't know when things went wrong," she said after a long pause. It got cold between us. I felt like you were distant." I raised my eyebrows. "Am I distant?" "Sarah, every day I tried to understand what was happening. I noticed that you were changing, that you were distant. And you never once talked to me about it. Instead, you just went to someone else." She pressed her lips together. "I don't know what to say. Just tell me the truth." She looked up and finally said the words I was afraid to hear. "I fell in love with him." That was it. These words hung in the air like a knife that had fallen to the floor. I took a slow breath. "And now what?" She looked at me, and there was something like pain in her eyes. "I don't know." I stood up. "Well, then think about it." But without me, I left the room, leaving her alone with her "I don't know." My hands were shaking, and there was a lump in my throat. I did not feel anger. I didn't feel hate. Only emptiness. If she fell in love with him, what did that mean for me? For us? For the 6 years we had spent together? Did it mean that I was just a transitional stage in her life? That our memories were no longer worth anything? I stood in the hallway, staring at the wall. I wanted to break something. I wanted to feel something. But all I felt was cold. Sarah came out after me, Josh. Her voice was quiet, uncertain. I turned to her slowly. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She lowered her head. I was afraid. Afraid of what? That it would ruin everything. I laughed in surprise, briefly, bitterly. And you think that nothing has been destroyed now? She clenched her hands, as if trying to find something to hold on to. Josh, I never wanted this to happen. But it did. She didn't say anything. I ran my hand over my face, trying to gather my thoughts. Tell me honestly. Do you want to be with him? She raised her head sharply. Her lips were trembling, her eyes were shining with tears. I don't know, you don't know? I smiled bitterly. You've already made your choice, Sarah. You made it before I even knew about it. She wiped a tear from her cheek. I didn't mean to hurt you. I shook my head. That doesn't change the fact that you did. We stood in front of each other, two people who had once been everything to each other, and now we're strangers. What now? She asked in a whisper. Now we are finished, Sarah. I turned around and went to the bedroom to pack. I threw a few things into my bag. I didn't look at her. I didn't want to see her crying face. I didn't want to hear her excuses or attempts to make things right. I just wanted to leave. To go as far away as possible, where nothing and no one could find me. Sarah stood at the door with her arms around herself. There was pain in her eyes, but I couldn't take it anymore. My nerves were on edge, and I felt like I was losing my last bit of patience. Josh, let's talk. Her voice sounded like she was ready to do anything to keep this from ending. I zipped up my bag and looked up at her sharply. There was no warmth in my gaze, only coldness that tightened me like ice. About what, Sarah? About the fact that you betrayed me? That you didn't know how to tell me the truth? That you had already made up your mind, but were afraid of the consequences? My words came out as if they were going to pierce her to the very heart. She took a step toward me, but I stepped back, as if I were being pushed away by an invisible wall. I couldn't stay here any longer. I couldn't listen to these apologies that wouldn't change anything. You said you didn't know what to do. But I do. I'm leaving, and there's no changing it, Sarah. You can try everything, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense. I can't stay in this pain. Maybe we can try. Her voice was trembling a little, but I couldn't let myself go back. What? Fix it? I laughed, but the laugh was bitter and ruthless. We can't fix what's gone. It's not us anymore. She closed her eyes as if the words were physically hitting her. But I couldn't stay here any longer. I couldn't afford to be weak. I couldn't feel this pain, which was already too much. I took the keys from the table, threw my bag over my shoulder, and walked to the exit, feeling her gaze stay behind me. With each step I was getting further and further away from this place, from this life, from this person I once loved. I didn't look back, even though I knew deep down that this was probably the last time I would see her. If you change your mind. She began, her voice sounding like she was trying to save something. But I didn't let her finish. I won't change my mind, Sarah. My words were irrevocable, like a lock being closed. I didn't change my mind and I wasn't going to. I walked out, closing the door behind me. It closed with a distinctive sound that echoed in the silence that remained behind. I got into the car, but did not turn on the engine. I just sat there, staring in front of me, swallowing the heaviness that was clutching my heart. There was a heaviness in my chest, a lump in my throat that made it impossible to breathe. This is the end. It was not just a quarrel, not just a temporary break. It was a line beyond which we could not go back. It didn't matter how many good moments we had. It didn't matter how much I loved her. No matter how many times we laughed and shared dreams. Now it was all in the past, and I couldn't live in the past. I stepped on the gas and drove away. The city was blurring in the rear window, and with every kilometer I felt myself getting further away from all the memories, from everything we had ever had. I didn't know what would happen next. Maybe I would find a new road, a new path. But I know one thing, I will not go back. And maybe it was the only right thing I could do. I would like to thank everyone who watched this video and supported me. It was not an easy story for me, but sometimes we have to go through painful moments to understand what is really important to us. Your comments and support mean more than I can say in words. If you are going through something similar, know that you are not alone. There is always a way out, and even when it seems like the world is falling apart, things will get clearer with time. The community here is my support, and I am grateful that we can be stronger together. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Your likes and subscriptions are the best support and what motivates me to keep creating content. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm always happy to hear your opinion. See you in the next videos. That's it. It was not just a fight, not just a temporary breakup. It was a line beyond which there was no going back, no matter how many good moments we had. It didn't matter how much I loved her. No matter how many times we laughed and shared dreams. Now it was all in the past, and I couldn't live in the past. I stepped on the gas and drove away. The city was blurring in the rear window, and with every kilometer I felt myself getting further away from all the memories, from everything we had ever had. I didn't know what would happen next. Maybe I would find a new road, a new path. But I know one thing, I will not go back. And maybe it was the only right thing I could do. I would like to thank everyone who watched this video and supported me. It was not an easy story for me, but sometimes we have to go through painful moments to understand what is really important to us. Your comments and support mean more than I can say in words. If you are going through something similar, know that you are not alone. There is always a way out, and even when it seems like the world is falling apart, things will get clearer with time. The community here is my support, and I am grateful that we can be stronger together. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Your likes and subscriptions are the best support and what motivates me to keep creating content. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm always happy to hear your opinion. See you in the next videos.